Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world. In 30 answers, discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Allison Levine, and today I am in the Napa Valley in St. Helena with Jake Stover and Gina Schober, the co-owners of Sands Wine Co. Gina and Jake, welcome. But here's the cool thing. Sands Wine Co. It is canned wine. So, Jake, tell us about Sands Wine Co. and a little history about it.
Yeah, so Gina and I, Gina came up with the idea for us producing a canned wine back in late 2015 on a drive through the Russian River. I was developing a vineyard out on the Sonoma coast, and she looked out and saw everyone out on the water, tubing and kayaking, that sort of thing. Looked over to me, said, "Hey, we should start a canned wine." And I thought she was completely nuts, actually. We both have sort of extensive backgrounds in the wine industry, farming and winemaking for me, and her on the sales and hospitality side, and at, really high-end restaurants, fine dining establishments. And so it caught me off guard a little bit, but by the end of that trip, she had me convinced that if we sort of focused on premium wine grapes, organically farmed vineyards, and make wines that were variety specific, vintage specific, and organically farmed, naturally made, that we could kind of carve out a niche and offer the wine lover additional opportunities to enjoy their favorite beverage. So
fantastic. So do you own any of your own vineyards?
We don't. We actually we lease two of the properties here in Napa that we produce from, Riesling Vineyard in Rutherford, kind of in the heart of Cabernet country. And then we also do a single vineyard, Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon, packaged in can as well. And then other than that, we're sourcing from old vine vineyards that are certified organic in Lake and Mendocino County. So.
Wow. And what different varieties are you producing and working with?
Yeah, so we have 7 different canned wine options. We have a Sauvignon Blanc, a dry Riesling. We do a still rosé of Carignan. We produce a rosé of Bubbles, which is kind of our play on white Zinfandel.
Is it sweet?
It's fermented dry, completely dry, but it's a fun package though. But we also do a red wine Carignan as well in a carbonic fermentation style. And then we do a Zinfandel, and we have the Cabernet. And then we just, in January, released our first bottled Carignan, which is also a carbonic fermentation. So
fantastic. And your total, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to ask case production or, and explain what a case is in cans.
Purely to keep the wine math the same. So all of our cans are actually 375 mLs, so half bottle equivalent. So 24 cans to a case. We're working with 9-liter cases, and our total production with the cans is probably just below 5,000 cases most recently. We're kind of growing every year though, so we'll see what happens this next year. And then we actually produced almost that same equivalent in bottles this last year.
Of just that carbonic Carignan.
Exactly, yeah. We had a national retailer ask us to produce that.
Well, so speaking of that, where are your wines available? Are they direct to consumer? Are they available across the country, retail, or just order from your website?
all of the above, but do you want to?
They mostly you can find our wines wholesale. So we now have distribution in about 40 states, because when we added the bottle to our lineup and it went into a national retail chain, we had to quickly add on a bunch of distribution in about 20 other states. So we also do sell direct to consumer too. And you can, really find, it just really depends. If you're looking to try a variety of our wines, the best option is to probably order direct from us. But just kind of depends what you're looking for and where you're at.
Great. Well, now, Jake, you mentioned you both have a pretty extensive background in the wine industry. You're, I know, an organic farmer by trade, and Gina, you worked in hospitality and restaurants. But I'm wondering before then, what are your first memories relevant to wine?
Oh, goodness. Well, beyond probably the, box of Franzia in my parents' fridge.
Well, that's your first memory.
Yeah, I have an older brother that's been in the wine industry for a while. My family's from Kansas originally. And he, after college, I'm the youngest of 6, so he's the second oldest. He's 11 years older than me. But after college, he decided to get into the wine industry, and then, he's been the vineyard manager for Turley Wine Cellars down in Paso Robles for the last 20 or so vintages. So when he would come back, my first memories of really good wine, which as a young kid, super into sports and everything, I'm not, I don't want to try it, but it was, kind of life-changing to be able to try those Turley wines at a young age.
What about you, Gina?
Mine was a little different. My grandfather actually had a vineyard up in Lake County, in Clear Lake. And so not trying wines at a young age, maybe like Jake, but I spent basically all my summers going up to my grandparents' lake house in Clear Lake. And so my kind of early wine experiences were seeing my grandfather during harvest, coming back like after a long day at the vineyard, picking grapes or kind of running a harvest, seeing him like just drained and tired and kind of covered in like the red dirt you see up in Lake County and like just crushing a bunch of Bud Lights. So that was like, really, that's the truth. I mean, that was like my first experience with wine, I'd say as a whole, but drinking it,
Well, so my question then is, skipping over the Franzia in the fridge, what would you say was one of those aha moments in wine? It could have been earlier in your career or maybe recent, but one of those wines that kind of, set you either on a path of discovery or doing what you're doing now?
For me, it was after college. I went to UC Davis, but did nothing with wine, but had always worked in restaurants. And I was, after college, not sure what I wanted to do, if I wanted to go to grad school or what really career I wanted to pursue. And so I got a job waiting tables at a restaurant called Pizza Antica in the Bay Area. And it's a really great restaurant group. And really, like, in all honesty, in college, it would be like, if we did drink wine, it was like liter bottles of really cheap Moscato, like something that would give you a bad hangover. But during like the staff lineups before lunch or dinner service, the wine list was small, but there was always like French wines, Italian wines, Spanish wines on top of really great California producers. And so we'd always open up something or be featuring something that was not normally poured by the glass, but was just offered by the bottle. And so I, at like 22 years old, got to try Nebbiolo from Gattinara and, Cru Beaujolais and, Rui Rosé wines, like things that I just had never experienced or just didn't even know existed. And it really blew my mind to have someone talk to me about wine in such a different way and to be able to learn how to sell it and get people turned on to drinking Nebbiolo and Cru Beaujolais. And so for me, that was like the turning point, that wine was this very complex thing that you could also make a career out of in kind of different ways.
What about you, Jake? Did you have an aha moment, a particular wine you drank or an occasion or something like that?
Aside from tasting those Turley wines when I was younger, I sort of, after college, was looking at going to law school, and my brother said, hey, take a year off and check this wine thing out. Aaron Jordan was opening up the physical Fela winery on the Silverado Trail, and so I came out as his first intern, and there were a number, I actually started making amazing wines and being involved in that process before really knowing anything about wine. And so it sounds ridiculous now to look back and think about that opportunity, but we were a custom crush facility for a number of kind of rock star winemakers as well, and I was essentially their labor. And it, just the harvest dinners and that sort of thing where Aaron would open old, Northern Rhone wines, I think those, more than anything, really, blew my hair back.
So not one specific wine, but, Gina, you're getting Italian wines, you're getting Northern Rhone, and you guys are sort of waking up your palates. And So, coming into your home, what would we find today? Is it mostly Sands Wine Co? Is it mostly local wines, or are there wines from around the world?
You'll find a lot of Sands because, we always keep a good stock at our house. And because I have a lot of family and friends in the Bay Area and I have to keep them stocked. So, I'd say you'll find more European wines probably than local wines. We have a good amount of some, small natural producers from, friends of ours, wines that we really enjoy. I mean, there's a bottle of Langhe Fresa from Berlotto behind you. Yeah. So I'd say more often than not, you'll find an import, at least probably what we're drinking, but yeah.
And is there something you drank recently that you opened that drank really well?
Oh, goodness.
That's a tough question.
Yeah, we
were just in Ohio last week, and we were with our new distributor selling wine, and we went to this really incredible wine bar. It was a cocktail bar and a wine shop, but it looked like a liquor store inside. Sold cigarettes, but really great natural wines. It was called the Bottle Shop, but we drank a really delicious Foillard Morgon. That those wines are always great. But we had I can't remember the name of the producer, but the guy in the store said I just wanted some bubbles or just something easy to drink, and he turned me on to this $15 Lambrusco that I could have probably put the bottles in my mouth and drank the whole thing. It was just so good. Yeah. For me, that's what I think the most recent, but.
Yeah, and I think here, within the last month or so, we've had some of the Soho, the Gamay from the Northern Rhone, and the Syrah as well. Those ones are
delicious.
So, do you think there's a such thing as a perfect variety?
I don't think so. I think that there can be close to perfect expressions of each variety. I cringe a little bit when someone says they hate an entire variety or
Agree.
They hate sector of wine. But because I think that they just haven't had the right one yet.
Yeah. I think the same. There's just so many of these great varieties can be made in different styles that I don't know if there's necessarily a perfect grape or a perfect variety because it just kind of depends. Yeah, I don't think there is.
It seems like the best expressions, in my opinion, though, are varieties that just barely ripen in the place that they're grown. That is something that I've found to create really interesting wines.
And so, what is your opinion on wine critics and scores?
That's wow. That's a
while they may, it seems like there's sort of a trend of critics and scorers going by the wayside. I think that early on, for sure, they're really important in kickstarting kind of the American wine evolution. Mm-hmm. I think that there are a lot of consumers that still really look, because there's so much unknown about wine, so it simplifies it a little bit for them. It's helpful for us to be able to put a point of sale next to the wine. So we do actually submit our wines for scores, and we like when the scores are high, but at the same time, I don't think it necessarily changes how we do anything in the cellar.
I think wine is so subjective in that everyone's palate is different, and what you like, I might not, or vice versa. That's kind of my issue with critics and scores, in that what they might rate as something as 99 or 100 points, I wouldn't spend my money on it or my hard-earned money or something I would want to drink. That's the thing, is that it's so subjective. For me, it's very difficult to say you can score something and decide what is good versus what is not.
Right.
And it can hurt, it can hurt brands, and it can, there's a lot of consumers who have, that is all they look for is, what has been written up in these various publications, and they won't venture outside of that. And so I think it can keep people from maybe, venturing outside of the box to try other really great wines. So I think wine writers and bloggers are wonderful because usually they're going out and interviewing a bunch of people and trying different things and getting more exposure out for these other brands. So I'd like to personally see everyone kind of segue towards that.
Yes, read blogs.
Seriously, yeah. I think you get a better perspective and picture of what's going on. And, we all don't know someone's palate. I mean, it's easy to look at these certain critics over the years and see what they score high and know, okay, well, that's a specific style of winemaking that they rate as being the best. But that in and of itself also is so subjective that I don't really think you can put a score on something like that.
Well, so if we really trust our own palates, your palates. Ready? Quick answer. Let's see if you can say it at the same time. Red, white, or rosé?
Red.
Oh, you're on the same page.
I feel
Still or sparkling?
Sparkling.
Still.
Yeah. I think right now, yeah.
And do you have a preference in sparkling, whether it's champagne or from somewhere else?
I love champagne. It's hard, I think, to find anyone in the wine industry who doesn't like champagne, but there's some really great sparklings produced in other areas that I think cannot be overlooked, and that also provide a great value for what it is. So, yeah, sorry about that. Wine delivery.
It's a wine delivery.
I'm on this panel this weekend.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Let me ask that again.
Okay.
Thank you, Amber.
So,
Thanks,
I know. So regarding sparkling wine, is it champagne or from somewhere else?
That's tough. I love champagne, and I think it'd be very difficult to find someone who's a wine producer say that they didn't enjoy champagne. But I think that you can find some very great sparkling wines of great value produced in other regions and other areas.
Yeah. So how do you guys approach food and wine pairing? Obviously, you make a range of wines. There's a wine for every occasion. But do you think there are rules to follow? Do you think that it's white wine and fish and red wine and meat? Or do you just sort of come what may, do what you want? What tips would you give someone?
I leave that up to Gina with the song background.
Yeah, when I first learned or was kind of taught in restaurants on how to pair food and wine, it was the easiest thing working in like French or Italian restaurants was to look at, where does the food come from and locally what is grown there. And often that is the easiest way to pair something. Mm-hmm. Food from a certain region in France and wines produced in that region, you can't go wrong. There are some basic, I think with fish and white wine, you can easily find some really light, beautiful red wines that have really nice acidity and are not overpowering that you can have with fish. I think there are basic rules that are easy to follow. However, sometimes it's just trial and error, not realizing something might work and it totally does.
Yeah. Well, for somebody who hasn't had the pleasure to taste Sans Wine Co. wines yet, what do you think they're missing out on?
That's a great question. I think that in general, we have really pure expressions of this grape variety grown in this location during this year. There's no oak on any of our wines. There's actually no manipulation whatsoever. We feel like we fall into the natural wine category in that we're neither adding anything to the grapes and or filtering anything out or removing anything. So I think that they're all light, bright, pure expressions of each variety.
And then there's some benefits about being in a can. Not only are you getting 2 glasses of wine out of 1 can, so good for a small party or for one person, but what are some of the other benefits of being in a can?
So cans are at least for producing low intervention or natural wines, the can is such a stable environment that it's actually, we feel it's the perfect vessel for producing those style of wines. You don't have the little bit of headspace between, like the cork and where the wine starts, like you do in bottles. We use higher doses of liquid nitrogen, which give that really great outward can wall pressure, and that also forces out all the oxygen when we're filling. So that also really makes it a great time capsule as well. You hold temperatures, like colder temperatures, hold longer in aluminum cans than they do in glass. I've personally had some accidents where I've left some of our cans in the car, like in the St. Helena heats in summer, when it's like 100 degrees for a few days. And just as kind of to see what happened, I just brought the wines in the house, chilled them down in the fridge, and the wines were fine. They were not spoiled. And we would never, tell our customers to do that. But I think that's also a testament to the package of it in and of itself. Mm-hmm. It's also great. It's very eco-friendly. We can ship double the amount to our distributors out of state than we could, or we can basically ship double the amount on a pallet than we could for glass. And the can itself is much more, you can recycle more or capture more during the recycling process than you can with glass.
So lots of pros for aluminum. And then when you try the wine, it's a perfect combination. So on that note, if space aliens were to land on your property, which of these cans would you want to present to them?
That's a tough one. Probably our Carbonic Carignan. It is the wine, I think, that is the biggest crowd pleaser amongst everything that we do. And I've really not seen anyone not really enjoy this wine. So I think that could make them very happy, trying our Carbonic Carignan.
And Jake, do you agree, or is there a different wine you'd give them?
No, I agree. I think, I think that it's, as far as red wines go, and lighter, kind of slightly effervescent, and, fruit forward yet savory, but packaged in this aluminum can that you can chill down, and I think it's pretty mind-bending for people.
No one picked the bubbles or So getting into vintages and into the vineyard. So Jake, this is a little more for you since you're the farmer here. Vintages, tell a story. Each vintage is different. You're making vintage-specific wines in these cans. How much variation do you see from year to year? Or in a region like this, or the regions that you work with, do you see more similarity within vintages?
It sort of depends. I feel like I'm learning a lot from a farming perspective because there is variation, and especially with the properties that we're taking care of. It's not always what's happening in the winery, because we're really not doing very much. It's what we're doing in the vineyard that is being expressed with these wines. And so I feel like the differences we can tell, and they're slight, but they're meaningful as well. And also, and I guess I could give examples of that. I feel like early on, our first couple of expressions of the Riesling carried slightly more acid than the 2019, and I think that was a canopy management issue, on my part that resulted in that. But then again, our Sauvignon Blanc is the vineyard is surrounded by pear orchards, and consistently this wine has more stone fruit qualities, and so. There's definitely consistencies from each site that are expressed every year, but the wines are a little bit different every year as well.
Yeah, so you don't get the same thing, like a bottle of wine, the can of wine does not give you the same thing year after year. So I'm curious, a lot of people who are superstitious or who are spiritual like to read the tea leaves at the bottom of a cup. If you could read the bottom of a can or a wine glass, because you pour your wine into a glass, what would you want the wine to tell you, or the sediment to tell you, or whatever?
That's kind of twofold for us because we actually print messages on the bottom of the cans because we don't have to have any born-on date. I'm holding up a can of the Carbonic Carignan, and it has the word cluster F &pound exclamation mark on it.
I have the Sauvignon Blanc, and it says Al Granzo.
That was my grandfather
Granzanella
who had
Nuno?
a vineyard up in Lake County. So that's a wine we kind of dedicate to him. And
Soda pop for the Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah, that vineyard's located on Soda Canyon Road, and because it's in a can, I'm from the Midwest, we actually say pop.
I didn't even know this. Riesling says the last hurrah.
Yeah, unfortunately, this vineyard at 60-some years old is getting removed this year. So,
and then this is one of my favorites.
Mommy's Little Helper. That would be the bubbles.
Yeah.
Okay. And the rosé?
Without the bullshit.
Without the bullshit. Okay, so you literally have a saying at the bottom of your cans. That was not planned for, but I love that.
I always actually wanted to get I've actually always wanted to do the tea leaves. I've actually always wanted to do that. So I'm trying to think of how we can like segue this in with like the sediment or the tartrates at the bottom of our cans.
I know. I mean, you're gonna tell, but I think that's perfect. From now on, I have some of these cans at home. I'm sure the message is the same for the variety, but that's really fun. So when you guys were little, you spoke a little bit, Jake, about growing up in Kansas, and it was your brother that introduced you to wine, and you were going to go to law school. But when you were little, what did you guys want to be when you grew up?
Oh, goodness. Something with international business, I think. We both actually majored in Italian. So,
at one point I remember I wanted to be a teacher possibly. And then in high school, it was a sports broadcaster for sports journalism. And then after that, I had no clue. I had no idea. And so hospitality was all I knew, and that's where I landed. I've gone back and forth a lot, but I think most people do.
Yeah.
I never thought I would be doing this. I will tell you that right now.
Never thought you'd have a winery?
No, never.
So when you guys are not working, how do you like to spend your free time?
What's free time?
Work is life.
Yeah, it's tough. I'd say because our business is just so entrenched in our lives that when we do have time off, it's usually probably just relaxing and finding a show to binge watch. I know that sounds horrible, but after this last year, if I'm being entirely honest, that's what I usually need to decompress after a long work week or a long week of travel and socializing. But we try when we work, at least when we go and travel together, even though it's work, we try and make it fun. And even though we were just in Ohio last week, it's probably somewhere we'd never go on a vacation, but we try and go out and enjoy the local restaurants or bars and see what's going on. And we kind of have fun in weird ways like that.
Well, I think that's great. So, you're exploring, you work together, you live together, everything. If you plan a romantic evening, although it sounds like you make a lot of fun as a couple, but if you plan a romantic evening, what sort of wines set the mood for a romantic evening?
That's good. We actually often surprise each other with either birth year wines or kind of older vintages, and it's been
our birthdays.
Yeah, on special occasions, and then it's been a while since we've done it, but we used to actually blind each other on wines, and
so for a romantic evening, let's blind wine taste.
Romantic, but it's actually fun. Yeah. I mean, for our anniversary this last year, Jake he's never had the opportunity to drink really old Burgundy, and so I went to the store down the street, and they've got, I think, the best wine selection in the Napa Valley, or probably in a lot of places, and they have a lot of really great old wines. And so I brought home a red Burgundy from the 60s that I thought, would be fun because he had not had the chance to try. And so, usually it's that, I guess.
No, you guys have fun. Yeah. I want to come have dinner with you guys.
Yeah.
So when you When you're living your daily life or approaching work, is there a piece of advice that was given to you at any point in your career, in your schooling, at home, that you carry with you as something to live by?
Oh, you want me to take that one first? Oh boy. Gosh, that's tough. You know, Jake, can you go that one first? I'm gonna have to think on that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go. Maybe. Okay, that's very difficult. I feel like I've gotten a lot of advice because I have a lot of people in my family who have had their own businesses and in hospitality. I would say it's probably never judge a book by its cover, or at least that's what I've learned in wine. Like, don't look at someone and assume that they don't know what they're talking about, or that or don't dismiss somebody based off of, I think, what they look like or seem to be like, especially for wine, because you will look like an idiot, I think. And I think that can be said across the board for all industry and for all business. And to just try, at least from what I've learned, and I'm sure at some point in my life this was somewhat told to me, to not let being told no, to just, move on from it, and either, sometimes maybe it's pushing a little bit more to try and get someone to go along or to buy your wines or whatever it may be, but to just know that you're going to be told no a lot, and there's going to be a lot of that in the beginning of starting your business, but you have to let that slide off your back or you won't survive. If you own your own business, I don't think, Yeah,
I think you just had two there.
I know, that's tough.
You took mine.
She was saving time for you to come up with one.
No, and in the middle of it, I was like, get comfortable with no. And but it's really important because it's easy. It's way easier. It's kind of an adage in the wine industry to make the wine than it is to sell it. And especially when you do something crazy like put premium wine in cans. Early on, we were told no a lot.
Yeah.
It's becoming less now.
Persistence pays off.
Yes.
So when you look back at your careers, what would each of you say is your proudest achievement so far?
I think, we've been fortunate to have, some good press and those sorts of things. And that's exciting and it feels good. But at the same time, I'd say really that in year 5 now that we're still in business, I think that's there's canned wine businesses that have started and failed. There's, other wine, just the wine industry is really difficult. So the fact that we're still in business, and then hopefully I'm not stealing something from you, but getting, the retailer that put that bottle on the shelf, it was their first variety-specific Carignan on the label that they had nationally in their stores. And so even though we're focused on the cans, that feels like an accomplishment as well. So.
Yeah. Are you allowed to say what store it is?
Yeah, well, it's Whole Foods.
Oh,
but
well,
yeah,
that's great. Just for the Whole Food shoppers out there, you can buy Carignan Carignan in a bottle.
Yeah, I probably would agree. I mean, this last year was really tough, and at the start of the shutdowns and COVID, we really didn't know what was going to happen and how that was going to affect our business, because we had so much travel planned and all these markets we'd opened, and all of that stopped. And I think that this last year we were really able to, we were just able to continue growing, and we were able to grow, and we were just able to grow our business and get out there more from a virtual standpoint, but just, doing this bottle, especially in this last year with all the fires and everything that happened during harvest here, we grew Sans Wine Co. We produced more red wine than I think anyone I know. I mean, most people just, either made rosé, didn't make wine, and we just stuck with what we felt was the right thing to do and what we knew would work, and it worked out for us. And so I think coming through this year, still being in business and staying married. No, I'm just kidding. A lot of lot of people, it's a joke, but it's true. But I really think that's it. Is actually we've gotten through this year in one piece, and we've grown. So.
Yeah, you didn't want me to tell people that I was interviewing you separately in different rooms, right?
Yeah. What's she gonna say? Yeah.
So complete this sentence for me, or fill in the blank. A table without wine is like...
A boring table? I don't know. A table without wine? I don't know.
Camping without a tent.
A boring table. Yeah, that's what I come up with. Yeah, you do a good analogy. I never did good on that part of the SATs, so that's probably why.
That was a very good. Both of you did well.
Okay.
It is boring, and I do like the camping without a tent.
Elements.
Yeah.
So we're sitting at your dining room table. We've got your canned wines in front of us, and your bottle of wine. And there's an empty seat at the table. Well, there's 2 empty seats.
Yeah.
So, if literally there are 2 empty seats, but that was not what I meant. There are literally 2 empty seats. But if there was anyone from any walk of life, living or deceased, personal or celebrity, who would you want to see drinking Sands Wine Co. right now with you?
Oh, that's tough. Gina.
Gosh, it probably would have been probably Anthony Bourdain was someone I really would have loved to have shared my wine with. And gosh, probably Michelle Obama. She would be someone I'd love to share my wine with and drink and talk and yeah.
Yeah.
And how you're thinking of the environment. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wine's a great way to kind of, remove some of the, get people's walls to come down. So I think that could be cool.
Yeah. Top that one, Jake.
Oh, that's tough.
He will
actually.
probably watch.
No, so Gina's family always, the Sauvignon Blanc is sort of the homage to her Nunu. Her family always tells me that we would have really gotten along, and so I think, but he passed away before.
See, he topped it already. God, I think that's terrible. Yes, and see someone I wish who could have drank my wine.
Yeah.
Oh, Jake, you did top me. I see someone sensitive now, but no, yeah.
So, if you guys were being sent off to a deserted island, you could go together. So you get 3 wines, but you can kind of double that if you really don't agree. But what 3 wines would you want to take with you?
Our wines or any wine?
Any wine.
Oh, let's see. Well, probably our Sauvignon Blanc cans, because if it's a deserted island, we need something that's going to keep temperature well and also be shelf stable for a very long period of time. Probably champagne and Cru Beaujolais.
Okay, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the cans make a lot of sense, but I would, something from the Northern Rhone for sure. Allemande is a amazing producer, of course. Goodness, I like the Dagenau, the whites. Those are that would be great. And I don't know, we drink bubbles on the beach.
Yeah.
Bubbles. Perfect. Well, it's time for us to play our little game with music and wine. So, looking at some of your cans, these wines each have a profile. They have a flavor, they tell a story, they have a taste. And music does, also does the same thing. So let's pick some of these wines and pair them with a song or a genre or a musician. So let's start with your Sauvignon Blanc, the one you take to your island.
So I would actually pair that with Frank Sinatra, because if I'm going and thinking of this as the wine that I've dedicated to my grandfather, that is all we listened to up at my grandparents' cabin in the summer was the Reprise album, and I still love that to this day. And so that's what I would pair with that wine specifically.
Jake, unless you totally disagree, I'm going to give you another wine. I'm going to tell you to do the Riesling.
The Riesling. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is tough. I would actually say, given that there's only, the weirdest way possible, I'm going to say that it's kind of grunge, in that there is only about 80 acres of Riesling left in the Napa Valley, and this is 4 acres of that. I mean, it's the tiniest subset now of Napa wine grapes.
That's so sad because Riesling is so good. Okay, moving on. Let's do, Gina, I want you to do the rosé bubbles, and Jake, you're going to do the rosé.
I would definitely drink that while listening to Lady Gaga's Chromatica album. That's like my favorite thing still after a year.
And the still rosé?
Oh my goodness.
Gina, you can help it if something comes
The funniest part, I don't really listen to
Jake
music.
listens to NPR, so he can tell you. I make fun of him for that all the time.
Yeah.
I'd say, God, those would probably be interchangeable. Yes.
Okay, and what about your Carbonic Carignan?
You got to give me something here, Jake.
It's punk. all the
Punk
way.
still? Okay.
Well, I said grunge.
Grunge
to
one,
punk.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I'll stick with you on that, I guess.
Okay.
And then, because it's so unique, a single vineyard Cabernet Sauvignon in a can.
Oh goodness.
I think it's actually very classical in that a lot of the early wines from Napa 70s, they were not as ripe. They weren't these big, heavily oaked wines. They were more subtle. This is a 12.5% alcohol cab, and I think classical.
And I can't leave out Zinfandel because that would have been the only one I forgot. So Zinfandel.
Zinfandel. Let me think on that one.
Is it an old vine Zin?
No, it's younger. I don't know. Gosh, that's a tough one.
It's savage. What would you?
I don't know. Maybe while listening to a good 80s album. I don't know. That's a tough one. Yeah, I listen to so much music and I like all different stuff that's tough.
You guys did great.
Okay.
You have 7 different wines and, you played.
One for each minute.
Okay,
Yeah.
We're just about finished, but what wine region is at the top of your bucket list to explore?
I mean, I definitely. Yeah, I have not.
Ooh, I'd say the Canary Islands for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to go visit there.
Yeah.
And Madeira, and the island of Madeira. I have to shout that out to you.
Yes, you do.
The island of Madeira and the Canary Islands.
Definitely the Northern Rhone, but we both studied abroad in college in Italy at different times, didn't know each other at that time, and that's on our list to go explore together, I think.
Yeah.
You guys have a good bucket list. I want to come have dinner with you. I don't want to travel with you. But what if people come here to Napa? You said that they could buy Sands Wine Co. wines. You can buy it at Whole Foods. You can buy it in retail stores. You can buy it online. But can they taste it here with you guys or visit? Do you have a tasting room?
We don't have a tasting room, but if anyone is interested in spending some time with us, they can.
Friends are welcome.
Yes, they can go to our website, sanswineco.com, and send us a message, and we can figure something out.
We've been doing a lot of virtual tastings as well, too.
That's a great way.
Yeah.
Also, too, I forget about that now. Virtual tastings are a great way to do it even in the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sans Wine Co., sans meaning without, because these are natural wines or minimal intervention wines. But Sans Wine Co., a can, 2 glasses in 1 can. You can't beat that. Gina and Jake, thank you for joining us on Wine Soundtrack. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Allison.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.